Why the additions to the Washington Commanders defensive line this offseason should help fix their biggest weakness, stopping the run, right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome inside today's episode of Locked On Commanders. I'm your host, David Harrison, here with you Monday through Friday, your friend, your eyes, your ears on the ground, covering the Washington Commanders for WUSA9.com, your local CBS affiliate online, and doing it as well for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. I want to thank you for coming through for today's episode. On this episode, we're talking run defense. The Washington Commanders have made some additions to their front seven. They've gotten bigger in theory, depending on the alignment of the formation. But is it going to actually make the run defense better? Everydayers, those of you who come through for every single episode, a special thank you to you, as I do every day, for coming through every single day. No matter if you're an everydayer or it's your first time to the show, please make sure you are subscribed for free on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this episode right now. Of course, if you are new to the show, I want to thank you especially for finding us. Hopefully you like what you hear and you come back through, because Locked On Commanders is a daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders, all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. So this is kind of a continuation of our mailbag episode, right? We did 2 mailbags this week because we had a lot of good questions to get to. Then I set aside 3 questions because I was like, these questions are going to be full-blown episodes. I sent the 3 episode topics to the insiders. I let them vote. They wanted, how is the run defense going to get better this year, at least on paper, right? We're in May, so all we have is paper. We've got rosters, things like that. And that question coming from Dr. Wonderful, who is a mainstay in our mailbag episodes, asked last year, we struggled containing the run. We've gotten bigger, but have we gotten better? It's a great question. Unfortunately, I can only tell you if I believe they will get better or they could get better, right? We're not going to know if they got better, obviously, until the season starts. So it's speculation season, but I'm going to try to give you as much information. I'm going to try to tie my results, my conclusion to as much tangible evidence as I possibly can, right? That's what we try to do here on the program. And I'll tell you right now, the answer simply is yes. Yes, I do think the Washington Commanders run defense is going to get better, partially because it can't get much worse, right? But also because of some of the things that they've done. And like Dr. Wonderful mentioned, the Washington Commanders defense, front seven specifically, has gotten bigger, right? The 2024 starting defensive line for the Washington Commanders, because that's where this whole thing starts. Now, obviously, you've got linebackers, you've got cornerbacks that could help in run support, you've got safeties, and you always love having those guys. But make no doubt about it, run defense starts in the trenches. The starting defensive line for the Washington Commanders weighed 1,120 pounds last year. This year, the projected, and I think it's very, very important to continue saying projected because this thing can shake out a number of different ways. The projected starting 2025 defensive line weighs 1,174 pounds. So it's a 54-pound improvement, which may not sound like a lot when you're talking about a group of dudes. But when you remember that starting defensive line is 4 players or so deep, you're talking about 10 pounds per guy on average, right? And obviously not all these guys are going to get that much heavier. So the projected starting defensive line, and again, depending on who you talk to, the projected starting defensive line could be different. But generally speaking, the projected accepted starting defensive line, defensive tackles are expected to be Daron Payne, comes in at 320 pounds. Javon Kinlaw, 319 pounds, heavier than Johnny Newton. So Johnny Newton starts, could actually be smaller. Also, that Javon Kinlaw weight is from his time with the New York Jets. Now, he's already told us in his introductory press conference that he does actually plan on getting smaller than he was with the Jets. He got bigger when he got to New York because he was taking on a lot of double teams. The Jets expected him to take on a lot of double teams, so he wanted to be bigger to be able to be a little bit stronger against those. He's coming here. He's actually going to slim down just a little bit, so that number is going to fluctuate. Dorrance Armstrong Jr. coming back for the left side, 255 pounds, and then Deatrich Wise Jr., a lot of people project him to actually start over Clelin Ferrell. We'll talk about that conversation here in just a little bit as well. He weighs 280. He's heavier than Clelin Ferrell. So if Clelin Ferrell wins the job, then that weight actually goes down a little bit. But either way, it's still going to get heavier and bigger. But getting bigger hopefully getting stronger, logically leads to the theory that you're going to improve the run defense because you should theoretically be able to hold up at the point of attack, hold the line of scrimmage better, fill the gaps longer, not get pushed out of the way as easy, set the edge more consistently than before, right? All of those things, if you can get better in all of those facets of the game, then it's going to free up your second level defenders. It's going to free up your safeties, even free up your cornerbacks that have tackling ability to come in and make plays for your unit. So in theory, simply getting better, yes, it could help the team get better, but obviously there's a lot of technique that comes into it. This is the NFL after all. You can't just throw a big guy out there and say, go be big, because that's just not how it works, right? So Commanders run defense is 2024. Where are we coming from? When we ask the question, is the Commanders run defense going to get better, even if they only look better on paper right now because we haven't seen them in action? Commanders run defense is 2024, according to Sports Info Solutions. Third worst in yards allowed, 2,345 yards surrendered to opposing rushing attacks. Now, it's not all running backs. Obviously, there's some quarterbacks involved there. They played Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts. They played twice. This is regular season stats. So they played him twice in the regular season, right? But still not good rushing defense stats, right? Third worst yards per carry when opposing offenses ran the ball to the left side, 5.8 yards per carry when offenses ran the ball to their left side, so the defense's right side. Try to keep that correlation because it's going to be important as we talk about this. Eighth worst yards per carry inside, 4 yards per carry. So still pretty bad. And then the 20th ranked, which would be what, 12th, 13th ranked or worse, right? But 20th ranked yards per carry when opposing offenses ran to the right side, their right side, 4.9 yards per carry. So against the defense's left side. Gave up the second most yards per carry on the right side, but that wasn't their second worst third of the line. It was the inside third, topped by the left side that we're going to talk about. So as we look at whether or not we see a path toward improving the run defense with who is on the roster currently, let's first take a look at who is on the roster currently. So obviously there is time before OTAs and all that stuff start. Certainly the Washington Commanders could go out there and make moves, add even more players to the front seven, but returning in the front seven, we are going to put Frankie Louvu on the edge here. He's an outside linebacker, inside linebacker, plays all over the place, but he does play on the outside and he does play on the line of scrimmage here and there. So we are going to just put him in this conversation. It's going to be important coming up. So Frankie Louvu on the edge, Dorrance Armstrong Jr., Clelin Ferrell, Jalen Holmes, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Andre Jones Jr., and Viliami Fehoko Jr., all returning edges from last year's roster and practice squad, some of these guys. The tackles that are returning from 2024, Jer'Zhan Newton, Johnny Newton, Daron Payne, Sheldon Day, Narelle Pollard. New players on the edge, Deatrich Wise Jr., Jacob Martin. Jacob Martin, again, a linebacker type, outside linebacker. Don't expect him to play any or much at all inside linebacker, so he's not going to be, as flexible as mobile, I guess, as Frankie Louvu has been, but outside linebacker Jacob Martin. Tackles, new tackles, Javon Kinlaw and Eddie Goldman, Eddie Goldman, we're not going to talk about as much in this part of the conversation, but we are going to talk about him at the end. So Eddie Goldman is going to get some love in this information. So that is how we set the stage. Obviously, we're coming from a very low point for the Washington Commanders defense, the worst unit on the team by far, one of the worst, if not the worst run defense. Even if statistically they weren't at the bottom of the league, you would still make the case that they were arguably the worst, unit, run defense unit in the league. And certainly Dan Quinn, certainly Joe Witt Jr., the defense coordinator, wants to get it improved. So how have the moves that Adam Peters has made this offseason going to help trickle down into their efforts to improve the run defense? I think I've got some ties to make here. I've got some dots to connect for you, and we'll start doing that next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to your Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to go to dive into hundreds of premium titles, including EA Sports, College Football 25, Call of Duty, and more. As easily as you stream in your favorite shows, you can be gaming. What if you could jump into your favorite Xbox titles without needing your console in every single room? It's incredibly convenient, and it all comes in 4K as long as you have the appropriate equipment. Head to Amazon.com/FireTV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and the Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Continuing out today's episode of Locked On Commanders, talking about whether or not the players that are coming in on paper are going to actually help the Washington Commanders improve their run defense. Again, 3rd worst overall run defense in 2024. You know, there's live comments here as we're broadcasting this live on YouTube saying that the terrible run defense, yet still made it to the NFC Championship game. That's 100% correct. So anticipate or think about what could be happening next if this run defense can get even a little bit better. Obviously, you hope to see it get a lot better, but even if it becomes top 20 instead of bottom 3, what kind of a difference that might be able to make for this team, right? So we're going to start this conversation. So there's 3/3 of run defense, right? There's the left side, there's the interior, these are inside runs, and there's the right side. But we're only going to talk about 2 sides because the 2 sides also encompass the interior players, right? We're going to talk about the left side, we're going to talk about the right side. Now, we're talking about defending the left side. So this is the defense's right side, right? Again, it can be a little bit confusing a little at times, so hopefully we're being clear on that. So when you look at the defensive right side from 2024, that would be the area of the field where opposing offenses had the most success against the Washington Commanders run defense. Your left side was from your right side of your defense, even I'm getting it mixed up. The right side defense, which is where offenses ran to the left, had the most success, was right defensive tackle / right end, Jer'Zhan Newton. 331 of his 628 reps came from that side of the ball, that side of the line of scrimmage. Clelin Ferrell, right outside linebacker, right end, mostly right end. 408 of his 527 snaps came from those positions. And then Dante Fowler Jr., your right end / right outside linebacker, 338 of his 667 snaps came from that right side. 458 of his snaps were also on the left side, or 450 of his total snaps, I should say, were on the left side as well. So he did play a little bit left and right side combined. So Dante a little bit everywhere, not as much as Frankie Louvu, but predominantly played on the right side. So we're going to label him the primary right end, right outside linebacker. So that's the group that opposing offenses were lining up against, right? So when they're saying, who do we want to target? Which side do we want to target? They were targeting the side that had Johnny Newton, Clelin Ferrell, and Dante Fowler Jr. most often to that side. So you want to start there because if you can fix the most vulnerable side of this unit, then in theory, you should be able to also get the stronger side to be just a little bit better, right? So you want to start there. Run defense grades according to PFF for all of them. Clelin Ferrell had a 55, not great. Dante Fowler Jr., 52.3, not great. Johnny Newton, 46.3, even more not great. So slightly worse run defense grade for Dante Fowler than in his 2023 season with the Dallas Cowboys. So his last season with the Cowboys with Dan Quinn, Joey Jr., he actually regressed last year in his first year with them in Washington. Johnny Newton, obviously it's his first year, so it's both his best and his worst run grade of his career, but 9th out of 13 rookie D tackles that played at least 100 run defense snaps in 2024. 6 D tackles that were graded out better than him in run defense were drafted after him or were UDFAs. I want to say 2 of them were UDFAs. 1 was a 7th round draft pick. So, not good. 3rd worst career grade for Clelin Ferrell. For run defense grade, better than 2023 with the 49ers, though. So it was actually a little bit of an improvement from what the Commanders saw on tape that made them bring him over. And obviously, Adam Peters knew him from their time in San Francisco together, too. So that certainly played a part in it as well. So I rewatched the worst graded run defense game for each player to get to some of these conclusions. We're going to start from the inside out. So this isn't like worst to best, in my opinion. We're just starting inside out. So inside is going to be Johnny Newton, right? His worst graded run defense game last season, Week 11 at the Philadelphia Eagles. It's actually going to be a little bit of a recurring theme here because we all know, unfortunately, Philadelphia Eagles kind of ran all over the Washington Commanders defense last year. Although this Week 11 game, not as much until the fourth quarter. A lot of those run production stats came in the fourth quarter. But anyway, Week 11 at Philly, you turn on the tape, you watch Johnny Newton, and what you're going to see is you're going to see him get pushed back a lot. You're going to see him pushed out of the play a lot, and you're going to see him get out leveraged on the line of scrimmage. Now, some of this is kind of to be expected, right? He's a smaller D tackle. He's a more compact type of dude. He's got shorter arms, right? He doesn't have super long arms. So there's kind of some of the things he's got to do to try to get leverage. One, he's got to stay low, but you see him multiple times get a little too high, end up giving up leverage points, but also he's already given up a lot of size and a lot of reach. There are also some plays where the Eagles kind of understood, like, in order for him to try to get leverage against a guard like a Landon Dickerson or pretty much any, full-size guard in the National Football League, he's got to kind of lunge a little bit. So they took advantage of that on some of their pulls. They would pull away from him. You'd see him kind of lunge forward, and then they come in from the side and just clean him out and push him out of the way. It's kind of a smaller D tackles. That's just kind of part of what he's got to deal with. But there have been other smaller D tackles in the NFL before who have had success and have at least been able to not be a liability in this part of the game while trying to become more of an advantage for their defense as a pass rusher, right? So that's going to be the challenge for Johnny Newton in year 2, is learning from those experiences and moving forward from those. More on how he can get better here in just a little bit. Clelin Ferrell, your defensive end, again, got some outside linebacker reps, but most often than not, your defensive end on the right side of the defensive line where the opponent would be running the ball to the left. His worst graded run defense game in the entire season, divisional round playoff game against the Detroit Lions. You turn on that tape, and the first thing you're going to notice is a lack of containment leverage. So not just losing contain, right? Losing contain would be the easy way of saying it, but he's losing contain because he's losing his leverage. He's getting too far inside when he's supposed to be that outside guy, or he's getting too far upfield and leaving a gap behind him for the runner or even the quarterback at times to just step into and step through. And he's missing cues, right? And again, nothing is ever absolute, right? So like every time you see a tight end lined up in line, it's not always gonna be a run play, right? But if you have, say it's 3rd and 2, and you're the defensive end on that side and you've got containment, your responsibility is to make sure that run doesn't bounce outside, and you're lined up inside the tackle's shoulder and you've got a tight end in line outside of him, there's pretty much no way, if this is actually a run to your side, that you're going to contain that run, right? There's just no way. You've got to shift, either go wide 9, you've got to shift your alignment. You've got to do something to shift your alignment to get advantage of that leverage. Truthfully, if the Lions in this case know, because you shift your alignment, like, hey, this dude is playing contain, this dude is not crashing down, there's not going to be a stun or a twist here because he's way too far outside, he's probably only got contain. They know that. That's okay as long as you maintain that contain, because that's your job, right? Like the only thing they can do is either try to run backwards into the backfield, try to get around you deeper to get around you on the outside, which again, if you have good 2nd, 3rd level pursuers, is going to be fine. Or they're going to cut in earlier than maybe they would have. Sure, they could find a gap there, but again, that gap is somebody's responsibility. And now what the purpose of contain is to keep a run inside the tackles, right? So you've now accomplished your job. So giving it away doesn't necessarily matter in this context. So you don't want to do it obviously on every play, but just kind of, give you a little bit of insight. There's situations there you see like, dude, you've got contain, but you've got 2 blockers outside your outside shoulders. No way you're going to contain this play. One of the examples on the 61-yard touchdown run, play goes opposite side. He's got cutback responsibility. Instead of taking his cutback responsibility, holding his area of the field to make sure that nothing comes back to beat him, he starts a pursuit upfield on the run action. So when Jamison Williams comes back the other way, there's nobody there to set that edge. And then look, trick plays are a little bit, they're trick plays for a reason, but those are the types of plays you need to see Clelin Ferrell get better at. Lack of dynamic run stopping ability as well. He's just kind of a heavy dude. When he does hold up, he just kind of holds up the line, doesn't really have any dynamic playmaking ability. Dante Fowler Jr., his worst game, week 16 versus the Philadelphia Eagles. So we got 2 Eagles games, different weeks for this side of the line of scrimmage. Not holding up at the point of attack very well, basically a pass rusher only. And this isn't a slight to Dante. This is something we've always known about Dante Fowler Jr., and it's one of the reasons why either the Commanders didn't negotiate to bring him back or didn't offer him enough to bring him back, is because they know, like, you're not a run defender. You're not something that we can rely on as a rush defender. You're a pass rush guy only. So if we put you out there and they run to your side, you're a little bit of a liability. That's when you turn on that film as well. So how does this side get better? Well, this is kind of easy button, but Johnny Newton's entering his 2nd season, right? So Johnny Newton from the inside out, starting his 2nd season, he's going to have the full off-season program. He's going to have full training camp. Again, knock on wood, anything can happen, but he should be able to have all these things, et cetera. It's going to be a much better lead up to his ability to play in the NFL. And potentially he's going to be moving to the left side. Johnny Newton didn't play in week 1, but he did play in weeks 2 through 5. In weeks 2 through 5, 67 of his 92 snaps came as the left side defensive tackle. So that's the left side of the defense defending the right side of the offense, right? Or left defensive end against right guards. Now, typically, especially with right-handed quarterbacks, the best guard is the left guard. So Johnny Newton, against traditional offensive line alignments, is actually going up against the opposing team's best guard, not the right guard. I say traditionally because not every team does this, right? The Eagles, their best guard, Landon Dickerson, he's left guard. So they follow that model. The Washington Commanders, their best guard is a right guard. So they don't follow that, right? So it's not absolute. But all those things should make Johnny Newton better, but he's also potentially going to move to the left side where he started the season before Jonathan Allen got hurt. Now, meanwhile, Javon Kinlaw comes in. He played the left side for the New York Jets. However, he played the right side for the San Francisco 49ers, which is where Adam Peters knows him from, where Adam Peters is bringing him in from. I know he's coming from the Jets, but believe me, Adam Peters is bringing in San Francisco Javon Kinlaw, not New York Jets Javon Kinlaw. So he and Clelin Ferrell, who also played on the right side of the 49ers line when they were together, might be able to reunite if Ferrell wins the starting job. At least they'll get reps together. That brings up Deatrich Wise Jr. 248 of 493 snaps in New England last year. He played on the right side. So he's going to be playing on this side of the defensive line, presumably. Competition to will drive improvement. Iron sharpens iron, all that stuff. So he and Clelin Ferrell are going to push each other. Best man is going to win. I'm telling you right now from watching the tape, Deatrich Wise looks stronger at the line of scrimmage. He's not incredibly dynamic, but a little bit more dynamic than Clelin is. Better edge setter than Clelin Ferrell is. Even in his worst graded game in 2024, outshined Clelin Ferrell as far as what I've seen on tape. We'll see what happens on training camp, right? Tape is not going to win the job this year. So we'll have to see how that translates. So Dante Fowler Jr. is obviously gone. He's not in the competition anymore. So Jacob Martin is currently the guy I would pencil in his place. He's played both sides, right side and left side, right, left end, right, left outside linebacker. But since 2020, the majority of his reps have come from the right side, this side of the defensive line. Pretty solid, consistently solid run defense grades as well. So is it better on paper? Yes, it's bigger, and it's also better. Again, the full season or full off season for Johnny Newton, potential move to his original side while Javon Kinlaw comes in as a proven aggressor on the right side. Ferrell and Wise battling it out. I'd give Wise the edge right now, but if Ferrell steps up, certainly could keep that job, then so be it. Martin is definitely at least on par as a run defender because that's what we're talking about here. Jacob Martin is not a worse run defender, I'll just put it that way, than Dante Fowler Jr. I would certainly put him above it. So that's the right side of the defensive line defending the left side of the offense. What about the other side? We'll do that next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Back now to round out our conversation about whether or not the Washington Commanders' rush defense on paper looks better today than it did at the culmination of the 2024 NFL season. And again, overall, I'm going to tell you yes, and I'm going to tell you why. We just talked about why on the right side of the defensive line, defending the left side of the opposing offense. Now we're going to flip sides of the line of scrimmage. We're going to talk about the right side of the offense, the left side of the defensive line. Last year, the left side of the Washington Commanders defensive line was Daron Payne, your left defensive tackle. 614 of his 871 reps came at left D tackle or left end. Dorrance Armstrong Jr., 492 of his 810 reps came as the left defensive end or left outside linebacker. Frankie Louvu, 197 of his 373 snaps came as the left outside linebacker. Now, 451 of his total snaps came on the left side in total. So again, Frankie Louvu plays a little bit of everywhere, but he was the primary left outside linebacker on this team last year. So we're going to start there here for this final segment, talking about this second worst side, right? The interior was the second worst, but we're kind of collecting all the D tackles and the interior rush defense in this conversation. But this was the second worst side, right? The left side for the offense was where they were most productive. The right side, not as much. But you still want to get better on either side, right? Run defense grades, Frankie Louvu had the best of this group, 61.7. Daron Payne, 46.3. Dorrance Armstrong Jr., 41.4. So actually on average, this side actually graded out worse than the other side, but because Frankie Louvu is 61.7, this side actually has the better total cumulative score. And also showed up on tape. It also showed up in the stat box, right? Teams didn't have as much success running on this trio side than it did on the other trio side. Worst run defense grade of his career for both Dorrance Armstrong Jr. and Daron Payne last year. Third worst in his career for Frankie Louvu, the worst he's had since he became a starter. So none of these guys are going to walk away from the 2024 season happy with what they did in that year as a run defender. So clearly all of them are going to want to get better. Again, I rewatched every one of these guys' games from their worst graded run defense performance in 2024. And again, we are going to talk about these from the inside out. So we're starting with Daron Payne. His worst graded run defense game came against the Detroit Lions in the divisional round. Another player who had his worst run game there for the Commanders. Very passive, right? And this is something that's kind of bothered a lot of us about Daron Payne just in the entirety of his career. Outside of his contract year, the passivity. And I remember specifically, I was doing a scrum with him in the locker room and, kind of asking him, I don't remember the specific question, but just kind of asking about the flow of the game. And he specifically said that he really kind of liked to take the first half to kind of get a feel for the game and then really turn it on in the second half. And I really hated that answer because you're basically telling us that for the first half of the game, you're just kind of seeing you're going with the flow. You're not trying to make an impact. You're not trying to change things. You're not trying to be disruptive. You're just going to see what the offense is trying to bring you. Then you'll go in the locker room. You'll think about it. You'll react in the second half. I don't like that. I don't like that approach. And it's kind of what showed up on tape there. There's a lot of reps where he just kind of engages with his blocker. You've all seen cornerbacks or even coverage safeties engage with the receiver. And they're like, oh, man, okay, you blocked me. They just kind of grab hold of each other. They say, okay, you blocked me. I'm not going to go anywhere. Kind of saw that attitude or kind of saw that approach from Daron Payne in some of these reps. As a cornerback, I don't like it anyway. But as a cornerback, you kind of understand it more. As a D lineman, you can't do that. So very passive in the game. Really good effort on one run rep. It was a third down rep near the end zone. So again, it's a high stakes moment. And that is when it's like contract year, right? High stakes moment. You see Daron Payne kind of turn it up. He makes immediate penetration. It ends up being a 1-yard touchdown run for the Lions, but it's because he gets held. Now they don't throw the flag. Unfortunately, it happens. But that's kind of rep where you're like, dude, I want to see that every rep or at least most reps. You know what I mean? Now you can't burn the battery out. You can't burn the motor out. But the problem is of all the run reps I watched in this game from Daron Payne, that was the only one where you see real effort, boom, from the snap. The rest of them, it's very passive. It's very much, let me engage you, see what's happening, then I'll react. The problem is by the time you see what's happening and you react, you're the D lineman, man. You're the first line of defense. It takes less than 2 seconds. It takes less than a second and a half most times for that ball carrier to be on top of you. You don't have time to do that. You've got to know your assignment, know your fit. You've got to get in there and you've got to be disruptive to that play. Like as a defensive lineman, it doesn't matter if it's run or if it's pass. You want penetration. Bottom line. Now, if you're reading screen or something like that, okay, got it. But you get what I'm saying. So that was Daron Payne. Dorrance Armstrong Jr., his worst run graded game of the season, week 11 at the Philadelphia Eagles. Really the biggest thing with Dorrance Armstrong Jr., honestly, in this game, finishing. And this is something that you want to see him do a lot better. Joe Wade Jr. talked about this during the 2024 NFL season, saying that Dorrance Armstrong was getting in the backfield a lot, was being very disruptive, hurrying quarterbacks, all that stuff. He just wasn't getting the sacks, right? The production wasn't there. Finishing. How is he going to get to finish? That's going to be something that Ryan Kerrigan is going to have to work on with Dorrance Armstrong Jr. It's actually something I'm trying to bank in my brain hole here to ask both Dorrance, also ask Ryan Kerrigan, so both of those guys, but also maybe Joe Wade Jr., maybe even Dan Quinn. How do you get a guy that's getting into the backfield to finish better? A lot of it looked kind of passive, right? Kind of like he made the early move, got the penetration, just didn't pursue the tackle in the backfield as aggressively. Containing, especially on the quarterback, breaking inside too early, lost contain, rushing past the quarterback. You can't do that, especially against guys like Jalen Hurts. You can't rush past him. If you do that, he's going to take off. That's exactly what happened multiple times. So contain discipline, a big deal there as well in that game. For Frankie Louvu, his worst graded run defense game came in week 17 at home against the Atlanta Falcons, the overtime thriller. You'll all remember that. A lot of times runs himself out of plays, man. Frankie Louvu runs and plays with his hair on fire. And unfortunately, sometimes it's going to get him in trouble. And you see him in this game more often than usual run himself out of a play. Lots of blockers attending to him. You know what I mean? This is week 17. By now, he's already been named the second team All-Pro. Like, people know about him. You know what I mean? The Falcons were clearly game planning for him a little bit. So he's getting lots of blocker attention as well. But I think the biggest thing for him is finding that middle ground between playing super aggressive, playing Frankie Louvu brand football, but not running yourself out of plays. It's a really thin line. So it's going to be hard for him to find. But I think a second year in the scheme will help him kind of do that, understand his role better, be more comfortable within it, be more established. And I think that will help Frankie himself just get a little bit better than he did in the first season. So that's the first chance for this run defense, this side of the run defense, to get better. Secondly, Dorrance Armstrong Jr. becomes a better finisher at the point of attack, play with more aggression. You get penetration, you get past your blocker enough, great, but then you got to finish the ball carrier. That's the next step for Dorrance Armstrong Jr. becoming a better DN on this defense, where Luvu is almost too aggressive at times. Armstrong needs to get more aggressive at times, play faster. You always hear coaches say that. I want you to play 100%, play fast the entire time. I can work with that. You just see Dorrance Armstrong. Sometimes he makes that early penetration. It's almost like he's surprised himself to be there, and he's kind of stutters, kind of hesitates, gives the running back an opportunity to escape. Daron Payne, I think competition from Johnny Newton is going to unlock something in him, or kind of just show that he is what he is at this point in time. Again, like I said, I mentioned Johnny Newton going back to the left side. When Johnny Newton got drafted, I remember talking to other media members, and I kind of said I think he kind of looks more like a replacement Daron Payne than he does a replacement Jonathan Allen. That's what I saw early on. That's what they were doing with him in the first 5 weeks of the season. Like I said, then Jonathan Allen got hurt, and they kind of were forced to put Johnny in there on the right side. I think they'll want him in the left side again, and he and Daron Payne are going to go toe-to-toe for those starting reps. So we'll see how that goes. If Daron Payne doesn't get his motor going with the competition, then you can see his snap count cut even more. Last season, Daron Payne played a career low 742 snaps, and it was the first time in his NFL career that Daron Payne has played less than 70% of the defensive snaps. So already this staff, even with Jonathan Allen hurt, like for the majority of the season, Daron Payne still hit career lows in those numbers. That just kind of shows you where they are with Daron Payne right now. So certainly if Johnny Newton comes in, taking another step, taking advantage of having this full runway to be healthy, Daron Payne's snap share could certainly go down. So is this side going to get better? Not just on paper, but on the field? Yes, I believe they will. Second year starting for Dorrance Armstrong as well. I think that's important to remember. He was always a role player in Dallas. Last year was his first year as a starter. So I think there's going to be some lessons learned there. He's going to have his second year to do it. Second year in the scheme for Luvu, I think is going to be incredibly valuable. And then that competition at left defensive tackle. Look, if Daron Payne steps it up and plays as well as he did in his contract year, that was great. You know what I mean? I'd love to see that every single game. So if that competition from Johnny Newton makes him do that, fantastic. If Johnny Newton steps up and takes that job, then that position is going to get a little bit better, right? So I think that you can logically say that, yes, this unit as a whole, we talked about both D tackles, we talked about the ends, we talked about the outside linebacker, so we're talking about left side, right side defense, interior defense. Yes, I don't think it's just going to get better on paper. I think functionally it can get better on the field as well. And then, of course, you still got some of the younger or less proven guys that we haven't talked about as mainstays in this thing. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Andre Jones Jr., both on the edge, both had average to above average run defense grades. They could certainly take a step forward. Jalen Holmes, a veteran that I really like on the outside. Sheldon Day, a veteran that I really like on the inside. And we didn't even talk about Eddie Goldman. I mentioned in the first segment that we're not going to talk about him a whole lot because I think he's just kind of a niche guy, right? I think he's going to fill more of a big run set, nose tackle, goal line, push defense, right? I just think he's got kind of a carved out niche, right? And it's a good niche, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be an every down type of thing for this defense. I believe. I could be wrong. We'll see once training camp gets started. So, and also, I mean, rookie linebacker Kane Medrano, you know what I mean? He's kind of that hybrid safety linebacker. Well, hybrid safety linebacker could get some outside linebacker reps and impact the run defense as well. So you got a lot of possibilities here. But yeah, I think from the main players that we see taking shape on this roster right now, I think we can say that, yes, the run defense got better on paper, but it also got better, or we at least project that it's going to get better on the field as well. Hopefully all that made sense. Our next episode, we're going to address another mailbag question that is going to take a full episode of Locked On Commanders. We're talking about the cornerback position. How are the linemen going to work? Who's best where? All those things. I'm going to do my best to try to quantify my opinion on that. That'll be our next episode. In the meantime, if you've got questions or comments you want to add to the pot, all you got to do is become a Locked On Commanders insider. To do that, all you have to do is go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. For your second listen, please check out the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves never stop. And hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino are going to make you the most informed NFL fans this offseason. Listen, guys, I listen to the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast with the draft dudes, Kyle Krabs, Joe Marino, two of the best in the business. I absolutely recommend it because I listen to them. I'm subscribed to them myself. You can do so on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast. And just like this one, it's all free. As always, thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day, every day. Thanks for coming through every single day. Everybody out there, please enjoy your weekend, but please be safe, be kind, so I can see you right back here next time for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.